I'm here today with Daniel Little from Link My Books, who's going to share with us how his software can help you improve your efficiency in transferring transactions out of Amazon and eBay and into Xero. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Simon.
Hello. Before we get started, please remember to like this video. If you have any questions or comments, please put them underneath the video. And as always, make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you get notified of any future updates that we make. So welcome to everybody that's joined us for this demonstration with Daniel Little of Link My Books, who is going to show us how we can link eBay and Amazon to Xero and save all that administration stuff, and there's some VAT stuff and all the rest of it in order to improve the way that we work with our customers. So welcome to everybody that's come along. We've got lots of people in the meeting, lots of familiar faces, and morning to you, Jeff, as well. So Jeff's found the chat box. And if you've got any questions as we go through this morning, as I always say, the uniqueness of these conversations, of these meetings, is the questions that the community poses to the presenter. And very often they're questions that I've never even thought of. So if you have a question that you would like to ask Daniel this morning as we go along, please feel free to pop it in the Q&A box. So at the bottom of your screen to the right-hand side of the raised hand button, you should be able to see a little Q&A thing. Just press that, pop in the question, and at the appropriate moment, I will butt into Daniel's presentation and ask that question on your behalf. And you can also use the chat box if you wish. It's easier for me if you use the Q&A box rather than the chat box, but you are free to use both. And again, as I always say, we like stupid questions. So if you think your question is stupid, please ask it. Stupid questions are often the easiest to answer. It's the hard questions we don't like. So if you've got a stupid question, please feel free to pop it in the chat box or in the Q&A box, and I will ask them of Daniel. So without further ado, Daniel, if you can pop out of the green room into the main room and we can say hello. There he is, and Daniel's just nipped off and got his big mic to match my to match my big mic.
I was a bit jealous of your big mic, yeah.
We had a mic off before,
before
you joined us. But anyway, I'll shut up because they're not here to listen to me waffling on. And without further ado, I will hand you over to the wonderful Daniel Little.
Cool. Go. Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Hi, everyone. My name's Daniel Little. I'm one of the co-founders of Link My Books. I'm just going to open up a presentation and then we can get rolling. So if I share this screen and then I'll drag my presentation in here, go back to the first slide and press play. And can I just confirm, Simon, that you can see that?
Loud and clear.
Cool. Right, okay, so the title of this presentation is How to Save Time and Money for Your Clients Selling on Amazon and eBay by Using Link My Books. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll agree with me. So who am I? I'm Daniel Little from the UK, actually from Newcastle. You can probably hear that in my accent. I actually live in Sweden right now. My wife is Swedish, so we moved out here in January. I'm the co-founder of Link My Books, as I said. My co-partner is Pete Moran, which is actually the last bullet point here. We're both ex-Amazon sellers who both exited seven-figure Amazon businesses, had sales all over the world, multiple VAT registrations, hence the sort of experiences that have gone into building this. I exited my Amazon business in 2018 and Pete exited his in 2019. And Pete is a software developer as well. So why we started Link My Books was we as Amazon sellers, we wanted an automated solution because the manual work was time consuming to get the sales data out of Amazon and out of eBay and put it into Xero or QuickBooks. Whichever ways we tried, the manual spreadsheets, everything was always just very, very time consuming. And it was also prone to human error because of the complexities of all the reports that these different marketplaces have. So we knew what we needed, but it just wasn't available. And what was available in the marketplace was quite expensive and difficult to set up. I'm not going to name any names. And we wanted something that was available for all sellers, not just the big sellers and also their accountants, to make everyone's lives easy. And the main things we wanted was something that just worked out of the box, that was dead easy to set up. And it was, what we found was, once we'd started working on this, that we realized that the manual way of doing things, it's almost impossible to get your accounting to be completely correct, especially from the Amazon side of things, because of the complexities of all the reports that you need to put together and merge in order to make things work. So what Link My Books does is quite well represented by this graphic here. So we take the stuff from Amazon, so the sales data from Amazon and all the VAT reports, etc., and the same from eBay. They get fed into the Link My Books system. We process all that information. We do a lot of work in the background, so that you have to do as minimal as possible in the foreground. We then create a summary payout for each of the payouts that's received from Amazon. So for example, if you've got a client who every 2 weeks they receive a payout from Amazon and say it's like £10,000, we will break down that payout into exactly what that is made up of. So we'll break it down into all the sales, all the fees, all the VAT. We'll also break down the actual revenue into lots of different categories so that you can then correctly assign various different tax groups. For example, sales that are going outside of the EU, sales that are going to Xero-rated EC business customers in other EC countries, etc., etc. We can go through a little bit of that in a minute. But once we've created those summary invoices, they are then sent across to either Xero or QuickBooks. We integrate with both. So that's what we do in a nutshell. Now, how Link My Books can save you time servicing the client is mainly around the fact that you don't need to download anything from eBay or Amazon manually. It's all done automatically. It's a 15-minute setup, which I'm actually going to show you in a second. And it saves, the average client saves 6 hours per month, and that's per client as well. So if you've got lots of clients that you're doing lots of manual bookkeeping on, then you've got the potential to save a lot of time. Everything can work on autopilot, as I said. So the reason I've underlined can is because some people like to see the information in Link My Books and then manually click on the send buttons so they can like check everything in Link My Books. Most users will do that a couple of times and then they'll turn on our automation. So it'll just come straight in from eBay, come straight in from Amazon, be processed to their requirements, and then sent straight across to Xero or QuickBooks. It's one click to match and reconcile deposits from Amazon or eBay, which you'll probably not have seen if you've been doing it manually, because it's hard when the payments are coming in every 2 weeks and sometimes some of the reports are monthly. So it's hard to like match everything up. I can show you how easy that can be. And then we also have a couple of additional things which are specific to sort of EU businesses and especially the UK side of things. In that we have an EC sales list, which is generated with also an HMRC submission file. So you can download the HMRC submission file directly from Link My Books and then do a bulk upload to the government gateway. And that sends all of the EC sales data for Amazon straight to HMRC. And then the last thing we have is the EU distance thresholds sales monitor. So if you've got a client who is approaching the distance sales thresholds in some EU countries, it's dead easy for you to keep a track of that. So how LMB can also save the client VAT. So that's how we can save you and the client time. But this is how we can actually save the client, excuse me, the client money in terms of not overpaying VAT, is that we can correctly identify and separate, as I've said, the Xero-rated EC goods income. We can also separate out the goods exported outside the EU and goods that are taxable in other EU tax jurisdictions. So if you've got a client who's like VAT registered in the UK, Germany, and Spain, we can correctly separate the taxable sales from Germany and Spain so that you don't then pay UK VAT on them as well. Because what a lot of people don't know is that just because the sale happens on Amazon.co.uk doesn't necessarily mean that it's taxable in the UK, because it could be going to a German customer. And if it goes to a German customer and they're a consumer and the client holds a German VAT registration, then they are ultimately going to pay German VAT on that sale. So you don't really want to be getting them to pay UK 20% as well, otherwise you're double VAT. So these are the type of things we can save money on. We can also help you to specify different VAT rates for different groups of products. So if you've got customers, clients who've got some standard rated products and some zero rated products, then we can separate those out so that they never pay the standard rate on their zero rated products. I've actually set that up in a demonstration. I can show you that as well. And then lastly, a lot of the Amazon side of things, their fees are mainly billed from Amazon Luxembourg, which means that if it's coming from Luxembourg with a Luxembourg VAT number to a UK business with a GB VAT number, then it's called intra B2B services, and therefore all the fees are reverse charged. But there are some fees that are billed from Amazon Marketing UK Limited, and they are 20% VAT on expenses. So Some clients might not be getting that right currently. They might either be doing everything is reverse charged or everything is 20%. Either way, they're getting that VAT wrong. We separate all those out, so there's no headache there either. And we'll make sure that you reclaim everything you should be reclaiming and you don't reclaim stuff that you shouldn't be reclaiming. So that's pretty much the slides out of the way with. And so the next thing I was going to do was jump straight into a demonstration of how to onboard a client, and then we can move on to how to actually set up the taxes and send stuff across to Xero and see exactly how easy it is to reconcile. Just before I do that, does anyone have any questions on the stuff that I've just covered? I know I rattled through that pretty quickly.
And there's no questions in the chat box, Daniel, but as always, feel free to post them if there is.
Okay. So what I'll do
here we
now.
go. Paul's asked,
Yeah.
how does it work out? But I don't quite know what bit that is referring to, Paul. So if you want to expand on that question for me. Sharon's asked, how will this impact with Brexit? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, so with Brexit, there's a couple of things. On the Amazon side of things, they have actually specified a couple of details around Brexit, that if you've got a client who is holding inventory in the UK and it's currently being like trans-shipped around Europe automatically by Amazon, from the 1st of January, that will stop. You'll have to hold inventory in the UK and inventory in an EU fulfillment center in order to fulfill for both markets. But that doesn't really affect us. And also we've built the system to be future-proof from Brexit, in that we already separate out all of these tax jurisdictions. So you've got your UK tax jurisdiction sales separately to your EU tax jurisdiction sales already. So because we already do that, that means that if things change either way or the other, then you've always got the flexibility within the system that those sales are already separated. So you can then treat them however you like for VAT.
Thank you. And then you might be covering this, because I know there's lots of people have asked this question. Sarah's asked, can you link to products in Xero? So does it, I know lots of people have asked questions around inventory and how it works with all that sort of stuff. So if you're going to cover that, then we'll move on. But if it's the right time now, Daniel, to answer it, then please do.
Yeah, I did actually see that in a couple of the sort of pre-registration questions. And the honest answer is, at the moment, we do not integrate with Xero tracked inventory. So we have our own thing, which is called cost of goods sold tracking, where we track the monetary value of all the SKUs that have been sold as part of a settlement. And then we basically make a bill which takes the money from an asset account and puts it in the cost of goods sold account. And that's all automated. But if you're using that, then you can't use tracked inventory as well, because otherwise you'll double account for your cost of goods sold. So it sort of swings in roundabouts. There is a lot of demand for tracked inventory to be integrated, and it is something we are actively looking at. The downsides of it are that it's prone to human error quite a lot. Because, for example, if we send something across which says that you've sold 100 of SKU A, and you don't have 100 in your tracked inventory account because for whatever reason you've forgotten to, or you haven't updated your last purchase from your supplier, then what will happen is Xero will just point blank reject that when we send it across. And therefore we would then have to handle that rejection and say, this has been rejected because you haven't updated something. And the whole idea is that the system is supposed to be as automated as possible. You set it, you forget it, and then you just match everything up in Xero directly. And if you're then going to have to come back into Link My Books and see errors and then deal with them in Xero, it feels a little bit cumbersome. Also, as businesses scale, it seems to be that tracked inventory just doesn't seem to work very well within Xero. So they are basically the two reasons we moved away from going down the tracked inventory route. But yeah, I would rather be honest and just let you know up front that it's not something we support right now.
Brilliant. So Lisa, I hope that answers your question on the stock control as well. If not, then just pop it in the Q&A box and we'll expand on it. Do we need to create a PayPal account in Xero, or will that be managed by Link My Books?
No, so that when you're talking about the eBay side of things, we don't integrate with PayPal. We integrate with the new eBay managed payments. So as of July this year, and up to December this year, eBay is actually transitioning all sellers away from taking payments directly to their PayPal account, and eBay are actually handling payments themselves now. It's called eBay Managed Payments. Most sellers have actually been moved across, but some are still in the process of being moved across. And what that means is that eBay then take the payment from the customer. They then build it up into like a payout, just like how Amazon do it. and they take off all their fees, and then they release an amount of money to the client, and that's for like multiple sales. So that for us was a key win, that we could do the same as what we do with Amazon, because they run the same model of like sort of collecting all the funds and then paying it out once every 2 weeks. eBay give you the choice to do it either daily or weekly, and we support both, but we do not support PayPal. PayPal is a completely separate thing. But yeah, so if you have eBay managed payments, then the payment goes straight into your bank account, so there's no need to make a PayPal account in the middle.
Thank you. And then I've got Sandy. Sandy's got some customers in the States and some customers in the UK. So Sandy's asked, does it work in the US? Does it work with the tax jurisdictions in the US?
Yes and no is the answer to that one. So we do handle sales tax. We can account for all marketplaces and all eBay regions. So if you've got a client who's selling on Amazon North America and they're selling in the US and they've got different sales tax, then we do account for that, as in we do take the amount from the payout and it says like, I don't know, $100 worth of sales tax. And we put that in a sales tax account of your choice. It's normally a current liability account. But typically most sellers will be using the Amazon Marketplace facilitator tax, which basically means that Amazon collect the tax and then they take it back. So that liability account should never really have a balance, because it should be like $100 worth of sales tax comes into it and then Amazon take it back. And so we just show that in the accounts so that you can see how much sales tax has been collected and how much has been remitted back to Amazon. Now, that's one way. That's what probably 95% of sellers do. Then you've got a small proportion of sellers who, if they're based in the US, they might have their own sales tax permits. And therefore, they might want to calculate how much they need to pay to New Jersey and how much they want to pay to all the other states. I can't think of any more off the top of my head. Texas, maybe. Yeah. I'm not sure they even have sales tax, but say they do. So we don't distinguish between them. And the simple reason for that is because there's another tool out there called TaxJar, and it's super cheap and it's really effective. And it's used by like pretty much everyone who sells and has sales tax. So we didn't feel like there was much of a, to be honest, return on investment for us to go down that route, considering they charge such a little amount. It's not really going to gain us much as a business, if that makes sense. And most of our clients come from the UK. I would say probably 80% of them, since we're a UK-based business. That's sort of been our little USP, that we're UK-based and we are focused on the UK market. But the answer to the question is yes, we do support it, but we don't split it between different states.
Thank you. Claire's asked, is it possible to link 2 Amazon seller accounts?
Yes, you can link as many as you like. You can have as many Amazon seller accounts and as many different Xero accounts, QuickBooks accounts, and as many eBay accounts as you want. Obviously, the plans are all different depending on how many you connect, but we can have a look at that as well.
Thank you. And then does it link to Sage or any other software? Or is it just QuickBooks and Xero?
It's just Amazon and eBay managed payments on the front end and Xero and QuickBooks on the back end. We are looking at others, but they are the ones that, again, sort of return on investment wise, have had the biggest demand and the most users requested.
Thank you. And just what was that? What was the name of the software that does the US sales tax app?
TaxJar.
TaxJar, Sandy, that was. Paul's asked, how does it work out whether something should be reverse charged, 0 rated, etc.? Does it look at the origin of the end customer on Amazon or eBay?
So what we do is, for the Amazon side of things, we actually download the payout report, and we also download the VAT transaction summary from Amazon. And that actually details exactly where the sale has been departed from, departed to, whether the customer's got a business VAT registration or not, what country they're based in for that business registration, if it's been exported outside the EU. And then Amazon also calculate the tax jurisdiction. So as long as the client has all of their VAT registration details input in Amazon, then Amazon will work all that out, and we basically pull the information from Amazon. Occasionally, you will get a client who say they've registered in the UK to begin with, and then they've realized they've hit the distance sales threshold for France. They've registered in France. It takes 6 months to get the registration. In that period, obviously, Amazon is just thinking everything is UK vatable. We have an override for that, where basically we can tick a button on our side and then say the customer has a French VAT registration effective from 1st of March, for example, and therefore ignore what Amazon says. We work it out ourselves using an algorithm we've put together to replicate what Amazon would do, if they had the details of the French VAT registration. So we basically use that information. From the eBay side of things, eBay is a little simpler because eBay don't actually tell you where the item is dispatched from. So we have to assume, and we actually put this in some of our disclaimers when you connect an eBay account, we assume that if you're a UK-based business, that all of your eBay sales are being dispatched from the UK, which in our experience, when we've asked all the clients we've connected so far, it's a pretty healthy assumption, because if you're a UK business selling on eBay, chances are you're posting your goods from eBay, from the UK. So we assume that they go from the UK, and therefore all we really need to know is where they've gone to. So we work out where the customer was based, and therefore we group them like that. So the eBay side of things is grouped into like shipped to GB, shipped to the EU, and you do have a VAT registration there, shipped to the EU, and you don't have a VAT registration there, and then shipped outside the EU. They would be the 4 categories for eBay.
Thank you. And then the last one that I've got in a minute, so we'll let you get onto the demonstration then, Daniel. Caroline's asked, you reconcile with the deposits received. Are these lump sums that Amazon and eBay deposits in a client's bank account rather than the individual sales transactions?
Yes. So we will take, basically, say you've got a payout for a 2-week period of £10,000, and that's made up of, let's say, I don't know, hundreds of sales. We will take that payout amount and we'll generate an invoice with all of the different transaction details. We'll check them all via the VAT registration document, and therefore we'll group them into the correct tax jurisdictions. But yes, it is summarized for the 2-week period. Now, in relation to sort of MTD and potential for needing to do daily takings, which is sort of a grey area for third-party marketplace sellers, but we sort of covered our backs there as well, in that as part of the document that goes across to Xero or QuickBooks, we also attach a zip file which contains the raw data from Amazon or eBay, and also an MTD daily summary Excel file, so that if the client or yourselves decide that no, in order to be MTD compliant, we need to have at the absolute most a daily summary, therefore it's all covered. And according to HMRC's guidance, as long as you've got linked documents, which they actually specify in their own documentation, then that's all good for MTD. So as far as we are concerned, we are pretty above board for that as well.
Excellent, thank you. So that's all I've got at the moment. Mark's put the tax jar URL in the chat box as well. So let's have a look at it, Daniel, if we can.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I will just change to a different screen, to this one here. Can you see that?
Yep, we can see it. Yep.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So what I've done is I've actually set up a demonstration account here. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through the actual process of adding a client account so that you can see that. And I've actually set up 2 fictitious emails called accountant@linkmybooks and client@linkmybooks, so that we can walk through the entire process. So the first thing you would do is you'd click add a new client. And then you would put in the name of the client's business. I'm just going to call this one Charlie's US. Client's called Charlie Klein. I'm the accountant. And they sell in, let's say, North America. Obviously, you can select wherever they sell here, and you can have multiples if you wanted to. So they sell in North America. Next. And then we need to choose who's going to pay the subscription for Link My Books. Is it going to be me, the accountant, which we can go through the benefits of doing that later on? Or is it going to be Charlie, who's going to pay it themselves? And this time I'm going to say, I'm going to pay it and add it to my subscription. Then we're going to connect it to a Xero or QuickBooks account. And I've actually already created one in Xero called Charlie's Widgets Limited. So I'm just going to connect to the same one for speed here. And the last bit is, because the Amazon side of things, only the client themselves can actually approve the connection. That's just a rule of Amazon. We have to just quickly invite the client. So Charlie is client at linkmybooks.com. My name is Andy Accountant. And you can put a personal message here. I'm just going to skip that for now. It'll just be something like, please follow the instructions to connect up your Amazon account. So I'm going to invite. And now this is pending to be connected. And now I'm going to swap over to a different browser where I am actually logged in as Charlie. And I'm going to check my inbox. Hopefully I've got an email. Here we go. Andy Accountant wants you to finish setting up your account. Personal message didn't include any. Complete setup now. I'm going to create a user account. I actually already have one, so it's probably just going to get me to log in. Yeah. So I'm going to sign in with either Xero, QuickBooks, Intuit, or Google. That's just for added security we do that. I'm going to sign in with Google. Client. And then it's going to ask me to connect my Amazon North America account. And I'm going to connect it. Now, the process here would be the client would go across to Amazon and collect two pieces of information, which is the seller ID and the MWS token. Now, I actually have those separately, so I'm just going to pull this off screen so that it's safe. There's secure information here. I'm going to pop those in. And then I'll show you the last step. Okay, so now I finished that, putting them in, and it said that the accountant has now been notified, click here to log out. So the client can't like mess anything up or like start setting anything up basically. So I can now click to log out, and I'm now logged out and back to the home page. So now if I swap back to being Andy the accountant, I'll have received an email saying Charlie has finished completing the setup. Click here to set up their accountant tax rates. So I'll go across to the accountant dashboard, and this one is now, if I refresh the page, it'll show as connected. I can now click on their dashboard, and it'll take me through. This will be the US setup, which is basically two steps. First step is for each of the different categories, as in transaction categories, we've got like Amazon sales, Amazon FBA inventory reimbursements, which is basically inventory that Amazon has lost or damaged and is reimbursed me for. All the different types of fees, advertising costs, sales tax, which I talked about, which is the current liability account, Amazon loans, if you've got any of those, reserve balances where they've like held money for future payout, and also refunds. We tell you what type of account those are. And then we actually provide you with a set of default accounts, which if you click next, it would add them into the current current chart of accounts. Or if you've already got a client that you've been doing this for, or you're moving across from a different tool and you want to use something different, you can literally just click in the drop down, and that pulls through all the accounts from their actual existing Xero chart of accounts. So you can search for anything in there you want. Just for the process of this, I'm going to accept the defaults. Then I'm assuming that this is it's actually detected from my Xero that I'm a UK-based business, and therefore it's saying that since this is all US, that the suggested tax rates are no VAT for everything. Obviously, as soon as they go to confirm, it says you need to check these with your accountant and that they are responsible. So here again, it pulls in all the different tax rates from my Xero account that I've connected. And so I can then select whichever one I want for each of those different types of things. It actually gives you a little bit of information about what these things are on each of those little pop-ups. For now, I'm just going to confirm those. And that's it. Now we've already started importing all the information from Amazon. It's actually not got the US currency in this account yet, but that's the full connection process. So as you see, it's pretty straightforward and pretty quick in terms of getting the client onboarded. Now what I'll do is I'll actually show you in the EU account that I set up earlier, which is already set up. I'll show you what the EU setup would look like. So the EU setup is an extra step, basically. Still the same, you choose the accounts to begin with. Then the second step is it asks you where the client holds VAT registrations. So you can either say, I'm not VAT registered at all, I'm only VAT registered in the UK, or as well as the UK, I also hold these VAT registrations. So for the purposes of this, let's say they hold VAT registrations in all of Amazon's fulfillment center countries, which is France, Germany, Spain, Czech Republic, Italy, and Poland. And that's quite typical. You'll get a client, they're called pan-EU user, where basically they have inventory in each of those 6 countries plus the UK. They do get a little warning message telling them that it's important that they have those VAT numbers entered on Seller Central, which ties back to what we were talking about earlier, that if they don't, in that article, it actually says If you don't have your VAT numbers entered in Seller Central, let us know and we can manually override it, because otherwise we'll just assume what Amazon has is correct. That goes back to, was it Simon's question, I think? Or maybe Jeff's question, I can't remember who it was. So let's say next on that. And then this is slightly different in terms of the setup here, because this is a EU account. It's a bit more complex in terms of tax. So here we have the different tax jurisdictions, and it actually gives you more information on what each of these are. So these are sales that are determined to be vatable in the UK, sales that are determined to be vatable in another EU state where they've been dispatched from the UK, etc., etc. You've got your zero-rated EC business sales, you've got sales that are exported outside the EU, you've got your loans, reserve balances. Here's what I was talking about earlier, where you've got Amazon advertising costs in the EU, and they are reverse charged. Amazon advertising costs from the UK, and they are 20% VAT on expenses. Most of your other fees are up here. They are also reverse charge expenses. So as you can see, we pre-fill a lot of the tax rates, but again, this is just because if we left this page completely blank, most people would get it wrong, because it's mainly clients that set this up. Obviously, you as an accountant, you can go through and select whatever tax rates you want. One of the main ones that often gets changed is the zero-rated EC goods, because we put it in zero-rated income as opposed to zero-rated EC goods income. The reason being that we did actually have it set up like this originally, but when that gets sent through to Xero, that affects the EC sales list in Xero. And because we send through a summary invoice for, say, the customer, Amazon.co.uk, for the 2-week period, it doesn't really work with the Xero EC sales list, which is why we've got our own. So what we do is we actually put it in as zero-rated income, and then there's a process to allow you to change it to the correct one later on. But that's maybe a bit too in-depth for today. So we'll confirm those. I've actually already done this, so I'll just skip that. But that would then apply to all of the settlements that are sitting in the dashboard. So if I quickly jump back to the presentation and then play that. So the next bit we're going to go through is posting settlements manually or on autopilot, matching invoices to their deposits in the bank account with one click, and downloading the EC sales list for bulk upload to HMRC. But before we do that, again, any questions at this point?
I've got no questions in the Q&A box or the chat box, Daniel. But last time I said
everyone's bamboozled.
There are none there at the moment. So
yeah, right. Okay, I'll crack on then. Okay, so now if we jump back to, where is my presentation? Where is that screen gone?
So there's just while you do that, Daniel, there's a question just popped in.
Okay.
How will we reconcile that in Xero? So the sales and expenses.
Yeah, just going to show you that now. So that's a perfect question. I will go through that now live with you. Okay, so now what we'll do, just before we do that, we'll have a look at what a typical settlement will look like. So for example, here is a one from Amazon.co.uk, which covers the period 15th of September to the 29th of September. Amazon has paid the client £31,759 and a penny. So if I click on this little view icon and then click on show invoice detail, you can see that what we've done is we have taken all of the different information that's been part of that payout, and we've grouped them into different categories, as in Amazon sales principal, Amazon sales shipping. But then also what we've done is we've grouped them into their tax jurisdictions. And then the last thing we've done is group them into the type of product that they are. So these are standard rated goods. I'll talk about that in a second when we do product groups. But what then happens is, so say we've got Amazon sales principal, UK tax jurisdiction sales, standard rated goods. That's going to go into the sales group, sales account, and it's going to have 20% VAT on income applied to it. And all of these tax rates and all of these accounts have been automatically applied on that setup that we just went through. So it's not like you have to come in here and do these for every single settlement. You do that once as part of the wizard, and then the wizard does the rest for you. So you tell us what you want your tax rate for UK tax jurisdiction sales to be, and then we apply it to all lines that are UK tax jurisdiction sales. You've also got things like your fees in here, Amazon fees, which are going to reverse charged. You've also got some inventory reimbursements, which as part of the wizard, we'd selected no VAT because it's a compensation payment for inventory lost. And you've also got loads of other fees, basically. Everything is broken down. So all of these things, all of these different amounts that go to these different categories, they all add up to this 31,759 and a penny, which means that once we've sent this through to Xero, it will literally, the bank reconciliation will show that amount, and then the invoice will be this amount, and therefore it'll just match up automatically, and you literally just press OK. Now, the other thing we've got turned on here is our cost of goods sold tracking, which I know a few of the users have asked about. So the way this works is we've basically taken all the different products that have been sold, how many they've been sold through what's called fulfillment by Amazon, which is where Amazon ships to the customer, how many have been sold through merchant fulfilled, which is where the client posts it directly to the customer, but they sell it on Amazon. And then how many have been done through non-Amazon, which is basically where they use Amazon fulfillment, but it hasn't been sold on Amazon. And that could be that they're using it because they're selling on their own website, but they're using Amazon to fulfill, or it could be that they have just sent out some free units to a customer as a replacement, and it's not actually a sale, but it's just gone into that category. Then all of those get summed up. We then apply the landed costs that the customer has entered. I've actually already entered some fictitious ones here. They get all summed up, and we'll basically create a bill for this amount, the 10,252. And what will happen is it will move from, I'll show you in the settings. It will move from our chosen asset inventory account into the chosen cost of goods sold account. So the idea would be that every time the client is purchasing inventory for Amazon, they would put it in this account, and then we will do the rest for them. So whenever it's sold, we will basically create a bill which will move it from this account into the cost of goods sold account. And obviously, again, you can choose whatever accounts you want here. This is all just part of the advanced setup. So in terms of what you need to do once you get to this point is I would maybe go in and just check to make sure everything looks good. And then it's literally a case of just clicking send it to Xero. It'll say sending in process for a few seconds just while we'll process the information and get it sent across to Xero. And there you go. That one is now in Xero, and it'll refresh the page, and it will now show that one as sent. Now, instead of having to do them all manually, the other thing you can do is you can come into settlement settings, and you can actually turn on, like I said, our automation. So you can automatically post settlements, and say you want to post them from, I don't know, right back to the 1st of September, and save that. That would then automatically post them across to Xero. Now, what I'm going to do, just for speed, is I'm just going to send them across manually. Just 3 of them, just to give you an example.
Just while that does that, Daniel, I've got a couple of questions, if I can. What if in one invoice we have some sales on standard and some on Xero rated?
Yeah, so I'll show you that actually, because that's a great question. So let's take this example of this settlement. Right, at the moment, everything is just going to standard rated. There's nothing that's going into Xero rated. That's because in my product groups page, I have these product groups set up: standard rated, Xero rated, reduced rated, but all of my SKUs are set as standard rated. So if, for example, I had these ones, like say the socks were, I don't know, kids clothing, and it was Xero rated, I'll put them in the Xero rated goods group. And I have already on this page for this Xero rated group, I've already set the tax rate specifically for this group to be Xero rated income. But again, you can select whatever rate you want. And now if I go back to the settlements page, everything's going to reprocess that's not already sent. Things that have already sent are like locked. They don't get changed. So if you were going to have to redo stuff, you would just have to click on this little refresh button here. Once that finishes processing, shouldn't take too long. So now we'll have a look at the same settlement again. And now what you're going to see is some stuff is going to standard rated goods, but some stuff is now going to Xero rated goods. And the stuff that's going to Xero rated goods has got Xero rated income tax rate. So it's pretty smart in that you only need to really make the change in the product groups page, in that you create a product group called Xero rated goods, for example, like I've done. Then you set the tax rate using the set tax rate to Xero rated income. And then you put those products that are Xero rated in the Xero rated group. and then the system does the rest for you.
Thank you. And then, so the transactions are reconciled in Xero, or do we need to do that manually?
I'll show you that now as well. So now if I head over to Xero, just seeing, am I still here? And if I just refresh the bank page. So now you can see those 3 settlements that are sent across, they are now automatically matching up to the payments that came in on the bank. And literally all I have to do is just press OK, OK, OK. That's it. Now they are reconciled. So if I then went into the invoices page, I can have a look and I can see that, say, for example, this one. That's got all the information that we posted through that we'd already looked at, where it's like all broken down into the correct accounts and tax rates. I've also added a tracking category called marketplaces, and then I've put this as the UK marketplace, just quite useful if someone sells in like multiple marketplaces to be able to split the P&L by different marketplaces. So that's all fed through. I can show you that in the sentence as well. Now all that is worked out, and then it tells you how much VAT is being accounted for. And then you can see that the payment has now been attached, just as you would expect with anything that's been reconciled. So literally the steps are: set up your Link My Books account. Ooh. Just wait for my browser to catch up here. Getting a spinning circle. Anyway, while it's doing that, so the steps would be: connect the client, set up their taxes. Once you're happy with their taxes, send their settlements across to Xero. Now, as standard, they'll go across as draft. I've actually set mine up so it goes across as pre-approved. You can do that in the settlement settings page. Once that happens, then basically you'd come to the bank reconciliation page on Xero, and it would literally be a case of just clicking OK, OK, OK. That's it.
Thank you.
My browser is still not playing ball, so
that's all right. That's all right. And you just turned into a robot a little bit there as well. So I think there's perhaps
oh, sorry.
That's all right. The builder's using
Connection.
the internet or something like that. But
maybe.
And then I've got a couple of people ask: is it the same reconciliation process if you use QuickBooks rather than Xero? Is it the same? It's just QuickBooks rather than Xero.
Right, it's caught up now. Yes. So the only difference with QuickBooks is with Xero, we send stuff across as an invoice if it's a positive amount. So if it's a positive settle amount, it goes across as an invoice. And if it's a negative, i.e. you've had more fees than you've had sales and Amazon is charging your card on file, then we'll send that across as a bill. And those invoices and bills contain all of the sales and fees. With QuickBooks, QuickBooks doesn't actually allow us, as far as we could see, to have a mixture of positive and negative items on an invoice. So we couldn't have all of the sales and all of the fees on the same invoice. So what we had to do to get around that was send it across as a sales journal. So they go across as sales journals, and they have basically a final line on the sales journal, which is for whatever the amount of the settlement was. In a QuickBooks setup, you would choose which bank account you want your stuff to go into. So say you had a Lloyd's bank account that you used for all your UK sales, but then you had a TransferWise account for all your EU sales because they're in euros. Then you would select which bank account each go into. We would then add a last line to those journal entries, which would be 24,456.19 to the Lloyd's bank account. And then you would literally just reconcile that payment on the Lloyd's bank account screen. So it's still like a one-click action.
Thank you. How does it account for sales at the end of the month that have not yet been paid?
That's just such a perfect question. I was literally going to say that. So as you can see here, we actually have where this is, say, October the 13th to October the 27th. So this is a mid-month settlement. So as you can see, there's only like one line. But if you look at this one, for example, where it's September the 29th up to October the 13th, that actually spans 2 months. So in order to keep your month-end figures correct and your VAT filings correct, what we do is we split that into 2 invoices. So you might not have noticed that in Xero because we're clever like that. But basically, you've got the first invoice, which is for the September part, for September the 29th to September the 30th. And then you've got the second invoice, which was for the other bit, the October bit. But in order to make things really simple in terms of reconciliation, now what you'll think is that the transactions in this one, they are all the sales that have happened and all the fees that have happened during the 29th to the 30th of September. But they will have an amount which is like a total for those transactions. And if you get a payment into the bank of 28,000, but then you have 2 invoices. Now you're going to have to match 2 invoices against that payment. So in order to get around that, and in order to stop you having to do like the find and match thing, what we do is we actually take whatever the total is of the first invoice, and we call it this thing called split month settlement balance of this invoice rolled forward. So these transactions came to a total of £5,035. So we'll add a negative line for that to like net this back off to 0. And we'll put that in the reserve balances account for now, which is a current asset account, which we've created as part of this. And then on the second invoice, we then immediately release that. The £5,035 gets released from the reserve balances account, which means that that nets back off to 0. Everything's good there. But it just means that now the total of this invoice, the second part, is exactly the same as what has been received from Amazon, which means that when we reconcile that on Amazon, on Xero, sorry, I'll go back to the bank accounts page. Actually, no, I'll go with the invoices because it was already reconciled. You'll see that this one for £28,034.99, that one actually has a part 1 and a part 2. But part 1 is for nothing. So as soon as it's approved, it automatically gets marked as paid. And part 2 is for the full amount of £28,034.99, and that's the one that the payment got assigned against. So in order to answer your question about what happens at the end of the month for sales that haven't been paid, that is handled automatically, is the short answer to it. Does that answer it?
It does. Perfect. Yes, thank you. Sharon's asked, what's the error rate?
Error rate? Well, it's 100% accurate if that's what you mean, because we are basically taking the payout file and it's got all of the information in there, and we then create the invoice, so there is no way that the data could be wrong because we are taking it directly from Amazon. In terms of, I know on the other account we saw an error. Oops, I'll go into settlements. I've got the US biz. And we did see some errors here, but that's just because in my demo Xero account, it's saying that I don't have the USD currency. But the quick fix to that is click yes, add it. Now I've added that in Xero, and now those errors will disappear. Oh, Canadian dollars as well, same thing, Canadian dollars. Yes, add it. Add it now. Okay. And now those errors should disappear. Yeah, so there you go. These ones are still processing, just because this is the account we're literally just connected at the start of the call, so it'll take like a couple of hours to import all the information we need from Amazon. But in terms of like errors in the data, there should never ever be any. It's 100% accurate. The only things that can happen, I suppose, is if a client has come in and say, this is actually, it's not common, but this is something we do get a question on occasionally. So in the tax wizard, say they've gone through and they've selected these accounts, and just note that, say that for Amazon refunds, it's a revenue type account, because as we know, refunds are revenue in reverse and not an expense. So we've created the account for them. They click next, say that I've only registered in the UK for now, and then when they get to the refunds section, so when they put their sales thingy in, put them in as expenses for some reason, or they'll have like manually edited the tax rate on this page, which is like not really designed to be used without knowing what you're doing. So they've set the refunds rate, and they think that refunds are an expense, so they put them down as VAT on expenses to save that. And then now what happens is, whenever they go to send a settlement, it comes up with an error from Xero, because Xero actually passes the error to us, saying that you can't have an income-based tax rate or a revenue-based account with an expense-based tax rate. Those type of errors we sort of handle with helpful help messages and help documents, and then obviously you've got the chat on the bottom right as well, so you can like talk directly to an agent. But I think that it's very rare that we'd get an error.
You just want to share what the pricing structure is and how that works in case anybody's going to disappear.
Yeah, so pricing wise, we have different plans basically depending on, let me just share my screen again. So if you go to linkmybooks.com, now because I'm based in Sweden, I won't actually see GBP pricing, I'll see USD, but everyone who's based in the UK will see GBP pricing. But basically it's a case of, if you say you can do this two ways, you can either have this as an individual and you can choose how many orders you have for an individual across your different sales channels. And then you have the Lite, Pro and Premium plans. They are based on how many sales channels you need to connect. You can have 1 on the Lite, 5 on the Pro, 10 on the Premium. You also get a bit more history if you want to go back further with the different plans, and then you get different levels of support as well. But what most of the accountants tend to do is they will have one plan for all of their clients. So say you have, I don't know, 5 clients and they all have less than 2,000 orders each. So I'm just going to shift it along to about there. And I need 5 sales channels because each of those clients only sells in one Amazon account or one eBay account or whatever. I need the $69 plan. Obviously, that would be GBP for you guys if you're based in the UK. And that's $69, one subscription. I can then share that between the 5 clients. However, I can then rebill that to the clients at what they would pay on an individual account. So if they've got 2,000 orders each, let's scroll it down to like 2,000 odd, and they have 1 sales channel each, then that's $33 each. So obviously you're paying 69, and then you're getting 5 times 33 back in from the client. The client doesn't lose out because that's how much they would pay if they paid directly. You're basically sharing the profit with us, so to speak. So most accountants will go down that route. And once they get to really sizable and they've got like more than 25,000 orders, then it's basically the enterprise plan, which is $249 a month, gives you 10 sales channels. If you need any more than that, then £9 each if you're on the GBP pricing. So that's how the pricing works. And as I say, most accountants will go down that route. Now, you did ask a question just before we disconnected, and I can't remember what you said now.
Yeah, that was from Sarah. So I'll just come back to that. So just basically from a pricing point of view, your recommendation is that the accountant buys a global license, if I could use it like that, and then sells those sub licenses on to the customer.
Correct.
Okay. And Mark's popped an affiliate code in the chat box, Simon50. Just explain what that's about, Daniel, so everybody knows, please.
Yeah, so I'll just skip to that slide. This one here. So basically, if you subscribe to a plan as an accountant here, or you get any of your clients to subscribe directly and they use the code Simon50 at checkout, before the 31st of December, they'll get 3 months half price. And also just to disclaim that Simon will get a referral commission for each of those.
So I'm going to be rich.
Yeah,
basically.
It's going to be Ferrari next week.
That's right. Well, it's already on order. So
yeah.
It will be
so
here
hopefully
for
everyone
Christmas.
subscribes.
So from a benefit to the community point of view, if you use Simon50 before the 31st of December, you basically get 3 months.
3 months half price.
Half price. Okay.
And to be fair, the pricing is one of our unique selling points, is that we decided we wanted to have fair pricing, and also we wanted it to be super easy to set up. And that seemed to be the pain points for some of the other major tools out there, which again will remain nameless. So that's the 2 things that we focused on, and we feel like we've hit the nail on the head there, that we've got much fairer pricing, which is covering as you grow in account size, as you add on more sales channels and you get more value from the tool, we then get more value from you in return in terms of a higher subscription. And then obviously the accountant side of things allows you to then make a bit of a kickback when you bill it to the client at full price.
Thank you. And if people want to sign up, they just go onto the website and enter the details on the website.
So you would literally go to linkmybooks.com, click on free trial. Once you click on free trial as an accountant, you then just need to ping a message into support and say, I am an accountant, please convert me. And then we basically convert you into an accountant type account. That would then allow you to do that process that I did at the beginning of the call of adding a client. We do actually have a help document to support that as well. And so once you've told us you're an accountant, we'll send you that help document as well. But as you saw, it was pretty straightforward. It's just a case of, because 80% of our users are clients directly, we just assume that people are clients. So you need to just be changed over into an account.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. So we've got 4 minutes now. Let's fire down as many of these questions as we can, Daniel. So Sarah's asked, is there an inventory system that you recommend to work in conjunction with Amazon and Xero?
Yeah, this was the one you asked. So there's a couple that our clients use. One is Unleashed inventory, and the other is Dear inventory. And both of those actually have the ability to bring in individual orders, I think, but it doesn't work quite as well in terms of reconciliation and in terms of the tax level information that we go into. So what they tend to do is they turn off the individual order importing and they just use it for the inventory management. And then they use Link My Books for the financial side of things.
Thank you. And then to Ginger's asked, if a client uses Avalara, how does that work with this?
Great question.
You can tell my level of expertise
yeah.
on this, Daniel.
So Avalara will be if the client is, say, VAT registered in the UK and holds other VAT registrations around Europe, then they will typically use Avalara or Avast or VAT Live or Global, or there's loads of them out there basically. That their job is to calculate and file the European VAT returns. So they'll be calculating and filing the Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Czech Republic, Poland, if you're a pan-EU customer, and then Xero will be for the UK side of things. So we have built our system to work in conjunction with that, in that everything that we do, if you think about when we did the setup, was from a UK point of view, it's going to be 20%. If it's dispatched from and going to the EU, it's going to be no VAT, which would be our sort of default rate. Obviously, I'm not an accountant or tax advisor, so this is not tax advice, but you can take it as you want. If it's going to an EU country, but it's been dispatched from the UK, we would treat that as zero rated income. And therefore, all of your sales that are taxable in other EU countries are either going to go into Xero as zero rated income or no VAT. So there'll be no UK VAT to pay, but Avalara will be calculating and filing your EU VAT side of things. So all you would need to do is, we are accounting for those sales that are going to the EU tax jurisdiction groups as gross. So say 119 euros for a German sale. Avalara will then say the client owes 19 euros worth of VAT. You pay that and then you back it out of the sales account. And we've got a help document which shows you step by step exactly how to do that. So it's really not too complicated.
Thank you. We've got 90 seconds left, so we can fire through them as quick as possible. Do we have to input all SKUs for LMB to export all data to Xero?
No, that's automatically imported from Amazon and eBay as well.
Thank you. And do we have to input these manually into LMB, or can these be imported from Amazon, eBay? I think you just answered the second question.
Answered that, yeah.
Perfect. Caroline's asked, are all the fees and refunds handled automatically too?
Yes.
Perfect. Ian's asked, where does the stock control list sit? Xero, Link My Books, or Amazon?
As in the level of inventory, we have a month-end inventory report which shows how much inventory is at Amazon. But ultimately your inventory should sit on your balance sheet in Xero, I guess.
Thank you.
The quick answer.
And Sharon's asked, what about if it's QuickBooks and the errors? The errors is the same with QuickBooks. There's no errors basically, whether it's QuickBooks or Xero. There's
no different. The errors in terms, I think she's meaning like the accuracy of the data. It's still exactly the same accuracy. We do not guess or estimate anything. It's all taken from exact numbers.
Thank you. And then to Ginger, that's customer support. Is the phone line support included? I think you on the thing. It
on the screen, yeah. So we don't have an inbound line, but we do have pre-bookable telephone slots, and they're only available on the premium plan, and they are sort of within reason as well. You can't have like one every week sort of thing. But most of the support can be dealt with via email or the chat. And we've got 2 UK-based accountants that man that, including myself. I'm not an accountant, but I also help in. So we always can get to the bottom of things.
Thank you. And then the last one, which I think again is from VJ, chart of accounts and tracking on Xero. Basically, we have to set that up before linking to QuickMyBooks.
No, so the chart of accounts, if you accept our default accounts, we will then automatically push them to Xero and add them into your chart of accounts. If you wanted to use like your own accounts, then you can still like do that after the fact. You just set them up in Xero, and then there's a button inside our system where you can click like refresh, and it'll pull through the new information, and then you can select whatever ones you want.
Thank you very much. And we're slightly over, but we've answered all of the questions. Mark has just popped, done an excellent job, Daniel.
Yeah.
Mark has popped the link to the URL to the website in order for you to register your interest, and the code in the chat box again. Before we disappear, Daniel, is there anything else that you would like to share?
The only other thing I was going to say was there was some questions that came up before, before the webinar, and I actually wrote answers to all of those. So they're in my slides. So what I'll do is I will send out the presentation as well to Mark, and then he can distribute it to anyone who wants it, so that they get their answers to the questions that were asked previously as well, just in case I missed any.
Excellent. Yeah, I don't think you have. I think the only one that directly's not been answered is about Shopify. So does it integrate with Shopify? And
not yet. It is something we are looking at, as well as Etsy, but at the moment it's not available.
Yeah, and I think all of the rest of the questions we've answered as a part of the process, but obviously include the slides and we'll send it out on the email with the copy of the recording and all the rest of it. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Daniel, for coming along and sharing Link My Books with the community. It's been fantastic presentation. Thank you very much to the participants and the community members that have come along, and to those that have asked questions. As I say at the beginning, it's those questions from the community that make these presentations and conversations unique. So thank you very much, and until next time, I will see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Cheers, Daniel. Bye-bye.
Cool. Thank you. Bye now. Bye.
Thank you for watching this video with Daniel Little on Link My Books. I thought it was a fantastic session. I hope you did too. At the bottom of the screen now, either side, you should see some videos that I would love you to click and continue your journey with the Accountants Mastermind. And as always, please remember to like this video, comment with any comments or questions you've got below the video, and please subscribe to the channel so you get notified when I next upload some content to help you inspire, challenge, and support you in your practice.